Hello, everyone. Welcome into the Coach Craig Sports live stream for the Thursday night football game, single game showdown slate over on DraftKings between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Baltimore Ravens. Should be a pretty interesting game tonight. Probably one of the better Thursday night football games we've seen in quite some time. So if you're new to this stream, you haven't been here before, pretty much what I'm going to do, go through the inactives, talk through some of the pricing for the slate overall, and then answer any questions you guys have, build some lineups together. But thank you for anyone that is joining in. I know there's still very early in the stream, so people will be rolling in overall as well. But I'm going to start off with the inactives, just kind of talk through them. A lot of these ones we actually did know before the game, or a lot of them were announced earlier on today. So for the Ravens, Jalen Armour-Davis, he's been inactive, just a reserve corner. Josh Bynes, one of their starting linebackers, is out, so maybe Tampa Bay can run the ball just a little bit better today. Calais Campbell, their star, or their best defensive lineman, is out in this game. He's dealing with an illness. Ben Cleveland's been out for the last couple of games anyway, so not too worried about him. Mike Davis is inactive once again. So we see the running back committee of Gus Edwards, Kenyon Drake, and Justice Hill once again. And then my boy Tylan Wallace is inactive tonight as well. Then on the Tampa Bay side, excuse me. On the Tampa Bay side, Cameron Brate's out once again, so Cade Otton's going to look like a pretty solid play overall. We'll see some of him, Kyle Rudolph, and Kokift, but Kokift is just a blocker. Kyle Rudolph hasn't played too much this season. He's been kind of more of a veteran mentor than anything. Carlton Davis is out at corner. Sean Murphy-Bunting is also out at corner. So last week we saw Zion McCollum start in his place. Probably a good sign for whoever lines up there for Baltimore, most likely to be Devin Duvernay and Demarcus Robinson. And we'll see a lot of, Rashad Bateman lining up on the same side as Jamel Dean. We'll see maybe if Tampa even shadows him in this one. I don't think he'll probably will against the Ravens overall, but you never know. Russell Gage, their third wide receiver, is out tonight. Julio Jones is active for this game, though. He has that torn PCL. How many snaps will he play in this game? It's going to be a big question overall. Luke Gedeke, one of the guards, or one of their starting guards, is out in this game. I believe Nick Levert will probably end up replacing him in the starting lineup. Then we see Akeem Hicks is out. He's been out for quite some time at this point in time. And then Antoine Winfield Jr. is also out. So a little bit of missing there at safety. We'll probably see Keanu Neal taking his place. Cornerback, if you get to a lot of three wide receiver sets, which you might not versus Baltimore as much as some other teams, that nickel corner could come into play. Probably going to be D. Delaney tonight, but I don't think that's going to make too big an impact on this game overall. So that's kind of the inactives as we talk through it. There's a couple guys that are banged up throughout the week. Mark Andrews dealing with that knee injury, but he played a lot of snaps last week, hadn't practiced all week, which not really a shock there, but still going to be very much in play for the slate overall. We're going to go over to DraftKings real quick. So I'm going to stop sharing the inactives. We'll go over to DraftKings and we'll get into a actual game slate. So we're going to share this real quick. And I'm just going to get into one for demonstration purposes. It doesn't really matter which one we get into tonight. Typically, I end up clicking on the $3 play action one. I have about 5 or 6 lineups built myself personally already. I'm going to talk through the pricing, the ownership projected according to runthesims.com. They are not an official sponsor of my site at this point in time, but who knows, maybe in the future we can work something out there as well. But definitely a site that I like to use from time to time as well. So the most expensive player on the slate is going to be Lamar Jackson. Excuse me there. So I dropped my notes that I have written down, but Lamar Jackson, he's $11,800. Obviously going to be a very popular captain play tonight. Anytime that you have a mobile quarterback, they are going to be a popular captain play. Lamar Jackson is no exception. He's projected 19% ownership in the captain spot. But when I did run my simulation earlier, he was coming up about 20%. So there's a little bit of leverage to be had there. A little bit of negative leverage for him in the flex spot overall. Mike Evans is $11,000. He's a little bit overpriced in my opinion, personally. Probably going to be a tougher matchup for him going against Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters, but he could definitely win. He could definitely get a long touchdown. I know obviously everybody's been talking all week about how he dropped that long wide open touchdown last week, but maybe he'll make up for it tonight. Maybe he won't. And then we have Tom Brady next, $10,000. It's a pretty reasonable price when you think about Tom Brady from a wide perspective. But if you think about what he's been doing this year, it's a little bit of a hefty price, honestly, just because he hasn't been as good. This offense in general has not been as good. He's still throwing for a lot of yards. The touchdowns just haven't been there at this point in time. If he gets them tonight, could be a pretty good game for Tom Brady overall. Mike Evans' projected captain ownership was 10%. Tom Brady's is 7%. In terms of the simulation that I did run earlier, there's a little bit of leverage to be had there for Tom Brady. I got about 5% more of him. Obviously, game script's going to depend a lot. And when you're building these single game slates, it's always important to tell a story. So maybe you have a game script where Tom Brady's thrown the ball a couple times, or I shouldn't even say a couple times. Maybe he's throwing the ball 40, 50 times a game and he's getting 2-3 touchdowns. You're probably going to want Tom Brady in that situation and a couple of his pass catchers. Then you have the opposite. Maybe they're running the ball or Leonard Fournette's stealing all the touchdowns away. So maybe he's the optimal captain play. And there's lots of different ways that you can build that. Or you build one where Tampa Bay's offense is kind of stinking again. The Ravens are looking pretty good. You want Lamar Jackson, you want Mark Andrews, you want one of the running backs, you want their defense, you want Justin Tucker, and then you're just throwing one Tampa Bay player in there. A lot of different ways that you can build it. Make sure you're telling the story as you're building the slate. Then we got down to Mark Andrews, $9,200. Obviously, the injury is a little bit concerned since he did have that goose egg last week, but should be a pretty favorable matchup for him once again if he's healthy and good to go, which I assume he is since he's obviously playing in this game. His captain percentage is, let's see where he's at, 13%. When I ran the simulation, he was closer to 10% just in the simulation that I ran with all the inputs that I did put in over on runthesims.com for the do-it-yourself simulator type. So that's one of the perks of doing stuff over there is you can kind of go in. They got kind of inputs of their own, and then you can also change things around if you want to do so. We get down to Leonard Fournette, $8,800. Definitely could be in play here. 17 fantasy points per game is nothing to sneeze at for a running back by any means. Ravens, kind of middle of the pack against running backs. Josh Bynes is out tonight, so maybe they can run the ball just a little bit better. Obviously, you got to key out for that Tampa Bay offensive line. But, he's still a rookie. It's not like you're downgrading too much overall at that guard position. Gus Edwards came back last week and had that monster game, although, he's still pretty limited in terms of his snap count and some of the touches that he did have. He just fell into the end zone twice, so probably a little bit expensive at $7,600. He is projected at 6% ownership. Leonard Fournette was at 12%. It was getting a little bit more of Fournette in my simulation as well, and then a little bit less of Gus Edwards. He's kind of one of those guys that was a little bit too popular for me personally, just because, all the metrics from last week say, he probably shouldn't have scored that many points, but the fact that he did fall into the end zone twice, scored 2 touchdowns, worked out in his favor. Rashad Bateman is somebody I'm not really particularly on tonight. $7,000, 11.5 fantasy points per game. Still was kind of dealing with that foot injuries, not 100%, even though he practiced in full for, I believe, the first time since he's had that foot injury, and that was yesterday, which is kind of walked through anyways. But not sure how involved he's going to be in this offense overall. I'm not too excited about these wide receivers. And then a lot of the game, he's probably going to be on the same side as Jamel Dean. So that is obviously the best corner for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with everybody healthy, in my opinion. And then with everybody that's kind of banged up at this point in time, could Bateman, get lucky and get open on a play versus some of these backups in the secondary? That's definitely possible. So you can't write him off altogether. Devin Duvernay at $6,400 would be my preferred option just because he's going to be on the other side of the field, mainly going against like Zion McCollum, D. Delaney, people like that. So there should be more upside for him. He's always a guy that could take a kick return back, could be involved in a reverse and take it the distance or for 50 yards. So it doesn't take a lot for him to pay off. And then he's also playing wide receiver. We got the backup quarterbacks. Don't really care about them. Russell Gage was obviously out. We already talked about him. Julio Jones, $5,400. This is the third game that he'll be active for Tampa Bay. I have no idea how much he's going to play in this game. They have him. They have Scotty Miller. They have Brashad Perriman. If I had to guess, I think Perriman plays the most out of those three, and he's actually the cheapest one on DraftKings. So I think he's the one that I had the most interest in tonight. Julio Jones was actually coming in like 2% in the champion spot, 3% I actually see. Maybe it's just because he's popular. It's Julio Jones, but he's still playing with a partially torn PCL. Don't expect him to play too many snaps in this game overall. Then we move down to Kate Otten at $5,000. Obviously playing a ton of snaps the last 2 weeks. Should be a pretty popular overall. He's only 2% projected in that captain spot. So if you want to roll him out there, you can definitely do that as well. Pretty reasonable price tag. Rashad White at $4,800. A little bit more involved in the offense, a little bit involved in the passing game. $4,800 is a little bit more than I would personally like to pay for him. But if you want to get there, get a little bit different, I don't have a problem with it. And I believe he was even 2% in the champion spot, which is a little bit of surprise to me for projected ownership. Then we had Kenyon Drake, who is $4,600. If Gus Edwards doesn't do it tonight, maybe it's Kenyon Drake that kind of gets the hot hand and he starts rolling. Maybe he's the one that scores the touchdowns, falls in the end zone. That's a way to get off of Gus Edwards there. It's $3,000 difference in price tag as well. The Ravens defense, $4,400. They're projected at 1% ownership. So if you really want to play them, you can. If you assume that Tampa Bay is as bad as we've seen in recent weeks, which like Carolina last week, they scored 3 points. Like there is a chance that they're just that bad. That's one game script that could happen overall. But, I'm going to mix my exposure here and there if I'm going to do it overall. Justin Tucker is obviously one of the better kickers in the league. He's $4,000. Pretty good price tag there. Ryan Succop's a pretty good kicker as well. He's at $3,800. Game does have like a 45.5 point total overall. I got it projected for 45 when I ran mine earlier. So both kickers definitely going to be in play. Tampa Bay, there's game scripts that you can make Tampa Bay's defense and play at $3,400. Obviously, they're not what you would expect them to be with all the injuries, but it only takes one mistake, one fumble, one pick six to pay off as a defense, especially at $3,400. Scotty Miller is $3,200. He's just kind of a big play guy, that fast, quick guy. If he gets a long touchdown or something, he'll pay off at that, but he's a little bit more pricey than I would like to pay overall. Demarcus Robinson's kind of in the same realm. He's $400 cheaper. If I'm trying to take a stab on one of those two guys, it's probably going to be Demarcus Robinson. We get down to Justice Hill, who's kind of been involved in the running game as well. Obviously, he was coming off a little bit of a hamstring injury, I believe, 2 weeks ago now. And if you want to get off Gus Edwards, if you want to get off Kenyon Drake, you want to go down Justice Hill, I really don't have a problem with that. Definitely a way to get different in this on today's slate overall. Deshaun Jackson's still on the practice squad, so we're not going to worry about him. They respect Deshaun Jackson quite a bit that they gave him a $2,000 price tag right away, though. Isaiah Likely's at $1,600, just a backup tight end at this point in time. Not anybody that I'm particularly chasing because he's been a little boom bust and he's not very consistent. But if you think this Mark Andrews injury is pretty real, then maybe you play one of these backup tight ends, whether it's Isaiah Likely or Josh Oliver, and kind of hope that not Mark Andrews gets hurt more, but he's kind of limited, and then they kind of work in a little bit more overall. Patrick Ricard's $1,400, a little bit more than I like to pay for a fullback, even though he is a decently involved fullback, but hasn't been too much so far this season. Brashad Perriman's probably my favorite cheap play at $1,200. Could be the wide receiver 3 for Tampa Bay tonight, and it doesn't really pay that. It doesn't take much to pay off at $1,200. If you want to look at James Prochet, he's not playing too much. He's $600. That's another dart throw. Keyshawn Vaughn's probably only going to play special teams. Josh Oliver, if you want to go all the way down at $200, would be the guy to target there, but he's not guaranteed to get anything, but he should be on the field at least. Jalen Darden is another guy at $200. If you want like punt kick returner type guy, maybe he takes one back. Hasn't done it so far in his career. Maybe he gets a couple offensive snaps and does something, but I'm not counting on it tonight overall. So I'm going to go through one more time, just go through the captain ownership. So we got Lamar. This is the Baltimore side. Lamar Jackson at 19%, Gus Edwards at 6%, Rashad Bateman at 6%, Devin Duvernay's at 2%, Mark Andrews at 13%, Justin Tucker at 2%, and then we have Ravens defense at 1%. These are the projected ownerships according to RunTheSims.com. 49% aggregate ownership going to Baltimore. So we've seen some of these games recently in these primetime games where more of the ownership's going way to one side, like Monday night's game where it was like 73% was going to the Patriots and 27% going to the Bears. And in that situation, I'm like, if you're playing in GPPs, you might as well load the Bears side a little bit. If you did that, you probably made out pretty well because the Bears ended up dominating in that game. But in this case, pretty even back and forth on both sides. Tampa Bay side, we got Tom Brady at 7%, Leonard Fournette at 12%, Rachaad White at 2%, Chris Godwin's at 13%. I do like him a lot tonight, playing in the slot, going against Martin Williams, who is the rookie out of Houston for the Baltimore Ravens. Should be a pretty favorable matchup for him. So maybe you play him a little bit over the field in the champion spot, or you just put Tom Brady up there since he's a little bit less. Put Chris Godwin in the flex, play another piece there as well. Then we have Mike Evans at 10%. We have Julio Jones at 3% for whatever reason. I really don't understand that one, why he's projected that high, but that is what it is at this point in time. Kate Allen is 2%. Ryan Succop at 1% and Bucks DST at 1% as well. So 51% aggregate ownership going to Tampa Bay overall for tonight's slate. So with that in mind, these are all just projections based on Run the Sims. Doesn't mean this is going to be the actual percentages, and they're going to vary contest to contest too. If you're playing in a single entry lineup, probably going to see a little bit more Lamar Jackson. If you're playing in like a 20 max, a 150 max, you're probably going to see a little bit less, or maybe the vice versa, just because people are trying to make stands. So that's just something you have to keep in mind when you're building these lineups. When I did run my simulation earlier, Lamar Jackson, Tom Brady, Leonard Fournette, and Brashard Perriman were a little bit more popular in the captain spot for me personally with the inputs that I put in. And then Mark Andrews, Gus Edwards, Rashad Bateman, and Julio Jones were less. So that's pretty much what it is. But as I said already, you have to make, the storyline that you want to go with for your single game slate. But at the same time, we're going to go through and we're going to build a lineup now. So personally, I I like to start with building cash lineups first. Personally, Lamar Jackson's the most popular in the champion spot. I don't know if you play him in the cash lineup, in the champion spot at least. I think Chris Godwin would make the most sense because I believe he's the next most popular, him and Mark Andrews. So I think throwing Chris Godwin in there, throwing Lamar Jackson in there, throwing Tom Brady in, throwing Mark Andrews. This is probably going to be like your core four when you're first starting to build. Now, let's see. We're just going to count this out loud. So we got Chris Godwin, we got Lamar Jackson. So we got 2 and 2 so far. So in this situation, we could put Ryan Suckup in there. I think you're probably going to play one of the kickers in cash. And then we could play Brashad Perriman. So this could be a viable cash lineup tonight. You could play it in GPPs as well. We got Chris Godwin in the champion spot, Lamar Jackson with Mark Andrews. Those are going to be 2 popular players overall. Tom Brady's going to be pretty popular. We got one of the kickers with Ryan Suckup. This could also be Justin Tucker. Do not discriminate against him. I typically like to do 4 and 2 more likely than not, but if you're playing in cash, 3 and 3 could work as well. And the Brashad Perriman at $1,200. So that's one way to do it. I'm trying to think of who else might be in cash that would be popular. I wouldn't be surprised if K-Dotton is, but I don't think that's the ideal build for cash. We could build a K-Dotton lineup just in general and kind of go from there. So if you're playing K-Dot, you're probably playing Tom Brady because you have the pass catcher with their quarterback. It's one way to go about it. As I'm talking here, I see a couple different people that are in here. If you guys have any questions in general, just feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll get to them as quickly as possible. Also flipping back and forth between tabs. So if it's a second, that will be a little bit of the reason why. So you're probably playing Lamar Jackson. Most lineups are going to end up with Lamar Jackson. If you want to get a little bit different, not play Lamar Jackson at all, that is a stand that you can definitely take on tonight's slate. But we got K. Dotton, maybe scoring the touchdown. We got Tom Brady, Lamar Jackson. Now you kind of get to the points where you have to make some decisions. Do you want to play Chris Godwin? Do you want to play Leonard Fournette? Do you want to play Mike Evans? I think Leonard Fournette makes a little bit of sense here too. But if you're playing out and up here, you might want him to have the touchdown. So maybe you play like a Chris Godwin who's just going to get some volume, doesn't necessarily have to score a touchdown. Whereas Leonard Fournette, yes, he might get some volume, but he's still likely to score a touchdown that might take away from K-Dotton. So we're just going to leave that one there for now. I like the idea of putting Devin Duvernay down here as well. He is my favorite wide receiver on their side. We could do a lot of different options from here. You could play one of the defenses, one of the kickers. We could even take Devin Duvernay off if we really want to. We could put Mark Andrews in and then kind of go down a little ways too, but then we'll probably end up in that where we're at Justice Hill or, Isaiah Likely or Brashad Perriman range. So that's a little bit of different ways to do it overall. You could make, so maybe we have a build where we want Gus Edwards to be our champion. We're saying that he's going to run the ball pretty good. He's going to score some touchdowns. Lamar Jackson's still probably going to be involved in that case. Maybe we're wanting to say Tampa Bay's offense is just going to suck tonight. And then we have the Ravens defense. We're going to put Justin Tucker in there together. Then this is kind of where else you want to make your stand. So we have to play somebody from Tampa. So do we want a guy in Chris Godwin who's going to get the volume? Do we want to play Tom Brady saying he's not going to have the best game, but he'll still get double-digit points? That's a whole other situation. Or do we want to play like a Leonard Fournette? So in this case, I think we're going to say Chris Godwin. If we're doing 5-1 onslaught, we can put Mark Andrews in here. Then we have Gus Edwards, Lamar Jackson, Ravens DST, Justin Tucker, Mark Andrews, and then Chris Godwin. That is one way to build a onslaught in favor of the Ravens tonight. I'm going to clear this out real quick. Now let's just say we want to do the opposite for whatever reason. And we're going to play Leonard Fournette in onslaught. We're going to play Lamar Jackson still because it's hard for him not to be in an ideal lineup. But once again, I said If you want to get away from that, you can definitely get away from that as well. But maybe we're doing the opposite of what we were just talking about. We're going to play Ryan Suckup. We're going to play Bucks DST. Maybe we play Tom Brady still. If we play Tom Brady, let's see, we got $7,800 left over. You get an awkward spot there if you play Tom Brady, though. So we could do Chris Godwin, then we have $8,800, but we already got Leonard Fournette in there. It's still kind of that awkward spot overall. Maybe you go all the way up to Mike Evans. You're at $6,800. You could play the Devin Duvernay if you really want to. You could play Julio Jones. That's a different situation as well. Lots of different ways to build these onslaughts. Tampa Bay is a little bit more awkward tonight than I would say on the Baltimore Ravens side, excuse me. Now, one of the lineups that I do like to build in general is the lineups with the quarterbacks in the captain spot, and then kind of going from there. So I like Tom Brady. We're probably going to take Chris Godwin along for the ride with him. Mike Evans, you could definitely put in some of these lineups if you want to. It's just not something I'm doing a ton of tonight. I'm going to skip down to Perriman because I like him at his price tag. Maybe we want to play a Cade Otton in this one too. Maybe we want to play a Leonard Fournette, or maybe we just take Cade Otton out and we play Ryan Suckup at kicker overall. Because there is a little bit of correlation with your kicker and your quarterback spot. Because if the quarterback's doing well, you're probably scoring points. So then the kicker's probably scoring points as well. We get to the point where we could put this actually works out perfectly with the kicker there. So if we do Tom Brady in the champion spot, pair him with Chris Godwin, Brashard Perriman, and the kicker and Ryan Suckup, we can all still play Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews. So that's a very viable lineup. That's probably going to be a lineup that pops up a couple times too tonight, just because it's at that perfect $50,000. As always, if you want to get a little bit different, you want to get your lineups a little bit more unique, you can leave some money on the table as well. Now, if we clear that out, I think this time we'll do the opposite with Lamar Jackson in the champion spot. But here's the thing with Lamar Jackson in the champion spot. He's a mobile quarterback. This is a guy that can run for 100 yards a game. He's actually, it might have been before last week, but he was like 5th in the NFL in rushing. So he does not need to bring like 2 pass catchers along with him. He definitely can do it though. We could do him and Mark Andrews and Devin Duvernay. Maybe we play DeMarcus Robinson even. And then in that case, I think we're still going to take the kicker along for the ride with Justin Tucker. We got 12,000. Let's see. So if you did Tom Brady, you're still getting in that awkward range. If you do Chris Godwin, then you're still kind of in the awkward range too. You could do a Leonard Fournette and let's see where we're at. So we could do Leonard Fournette and Ryan Suckup. That's a way to do it. It's kind of a little awkward pairing there, but maybe Leonard Fournette's running for over 100 yards and Ryan Suckup still kicking some field goals. Definitely something that could happen. Maybe we take these guys off. We're going to take Duvernay off, and maybe we're going to go all the way down to DeMarcus Robinson and then kind of go from there. Actually, now that I'm talking about that, it's like you could do an onslaught where you just play DeMarcus Robinson, Devin Duvernay, but the thing is Lamar doesn't have to get there with all those pass catchers too. So that's kind of one of the factors overall. We could do Chris Godwin. We could do Rashad Bateman in this case too, if we really want to. A lot of different ways that you could do it overall. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. I know we got a couple of people that tend to watch the streams that like it when I put a really cheap player in the champion spot. So Brashard Perriman's one that I do like quite a bit tonight. In the champion spot, he's only $1,800. I believe I have this one built in my other ones. I'll probably show you guys those ones in general though. Then we have Lamar Jackson. We're going to bring Tom Brady along for the ride. We're going to go Chris Godwin. Excuse me. We do Chris Godwin, Mark Andrews, and then we got $8,200 left over. Maybe this is a Gus Edwards spot, and then you're on a 3-3. Maybe it's someone else. Now I'm really curious just because I'm going to go to my other lineups because I have one that's built similar to that overall. So I'm going to pull those up real quick. Once again, everybody that is watching, thank you for joining. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I think this was the one that I was talking about, actually. So I ended up with Brashard Perriman in the champion spot. We're still playing Tom Brady alongside him. I did end up playing Chris Godwin and Mike Evans together alongside Brashard Perriman. This might not be one that, kind of goes off the best, but when it does hit, it's going to hit pretty good. It's still at $50,000, so there is a chance that it might be duplicated or, copied quite a bit, but we got Lamar Jackson, Devin Duvernay, but I don't feel like that's going to be a super popular lineup in general. Then we have a Devin Duvernay captain lineup. Obviously, we're playing Lamar Jackson alongside him. Got Mark Andrews and Justin Tucker. So some pretty safe plays there. We got Tom Brady and Kate Otten. So that's one that's probably not going to be as popular. $400 remaining on the table. Then we end up with Leonard Fournette in the champion spot. Got Tom Brady alongside him still, Ryan Suckup and Brashad Perriman. So Leonard Fournette's going to be pretty busy. Tom Brady's still going to score, double-digit points, so you want him in there. Suckup's kicking some field goals. Perriman's still good play relative to his price tag. Then we have Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, who are both going to be super popular and probably do pretty well overall. Then we get down to Lamar Jackson Lamar Jackson in the champion spot. Got him alongside with Mark Andrews, Devin Duvernay, and Justin Tucker. And then we have Chris Godwin, and this is one that actually slid Scotty Miller into too, just kind of taking that dart throw there. But maybe you get a little bit lucky with this lineup. We have a popular champion with Lamar Jackson. Mark Andrews is still going to be popular. Chris Godwin's still going to be popular. And then you're taking some dart throws, or I can't even say you're taking a full dart throw with Devin Duvernay, but a guy that's not quite as popular as some other players on the slate. And then kind of your dart throw with Scotty Miller overall. Let's see where we're at. Then we have Tom Brady in champion spot. We got Chris Godwin alongside with the ride for him. Then we have Brashad Perriman, the kicker, Leonard Fournette, and then Lamar Jackson. So that's kind of the 5-1 onslaught. So Tom Brady's having a really good game. Lamar Jackson's still good enough that you're going to want him in there. And then all these other pieces alongside Tom Brady as well. Let's see. Then this one was one of the free contests. We got Chris Godwin in the champion spot. Do expect that to be pretty popular. We got Tom Brady with him once again, Ryan Suckup, Brashad Perriman, Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews. I think that's one that we kind of built earlier as well. And then one of these other free contests is where I threw Kate out in the champion spot. We got Tom Brady alongside him. We got Leonard Fournette, Julio Jones, just to have a little bit of Julio Jones exposure, Devin Duvernay, and Lamar Jackson overall. So that's kind of the ones that I do have built at this point in time. I know there are some people in here or like to listen from time to time that are kind of interested in the FanDuel side of things. So I'm going to try to run down the pricing of that real quick before I get out of here. But if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know and I'll get to them as quickly as possible. So I'm just waiting for this to pull up for the FanDuel pricing. So while I'm doing that too, I'm just going to say too, if you guys are interested in more information about any of this stuff, feel free to check out my Patreon at patreon.com/Coach Craig Sport. If you're not already subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure that you're subscribed. Make sure you have the notifications turned on so you don't miss these streams. You don't miss the weekly core pick videos as well for the main slate. And then if you're in NBA DFS at all, I put out daily NBA DFS core pick videos as well. That's Monday through Friday. So definitely going to be an interesting NBA DFS slate tonight just because there is no value on it. In terms of FanDuel, real quick, we got Lamar Jackson at $17,500. He's still probably going to be pretty popular. You can definitely fit him in your lineups tonight. Tom Brady is $15,000. Mike Evans, $14,000. He's probably going to be the guy that I'm not getting to quite as much tonight. I don't like him as much in this matchup. And with the pricing that he does have on both slates, Mark Andrews, $13,500. Still going to be pretty popular. If you wanted to punt him, it's probably a little bit easier to punt him or fade him on FanDuel than it is on DraftKings just due to the pricing. Leonard Fournette, $13,000, definitely going to be in play once again. Chris Godwin at Chris Godwin is $12,500. He's not quite as good on FanDuel just because it's half point PPR instead of full point PPR, but definitely still has very, very good upside in this game. Gus Edwards is $12,000 there, so he's kind of expensive on both sides. I don't have a problem if you want to get away from him. If you want to play him, definitely in play as well. Rob Bateman at 11,000. Really not somewhere that I'm trying to get to personally. I don't really have a FanDuel lineups built at this point in time for tonight. Might end up doing it, might end up not. Devin Duvernay is $10,000. A little bit pricey, but I still like him on this slate overall. Justin Tucker is at $9,500. Ravens DST is at $9,500. Both could be in play just depending on how you build your lineups. Ryan Suckup at $9,000, definitely in play as well. If it was a normal Thursday night game with that kicker price and these kickers being good kickers, I'd probably say play both of them. But since this should be a game that has some points scored, maybe that's not the case. Kenyon Drake's $8,500 if you want to get off Gus Edwards. Russell Gage is not playing. He was $8,500. K-Don's $8,000. Definitely could be in play on both sides. If he gets a touchdown, it's going to look even better. Justice Hill's at $7,500. Could be in play as well if you're trying to get away from some of the other backs for Baltimore and hope he does something. Julio Jones, $7,500. I like his price tag a lot better on FanDuel, where he's a cheap play and not $5,400, where he's kind of middle of the price on, DraftKings. So if you're going to take a shot, if you're playing on both sides, FanDuel is probably where I take that shot on Julio Jones a little bit more. Scotty Miller, $6,500. Rashad Perriman, $6,000, which is barely above the flat minimum over there too as well. So I think he's a decent play on both sides. There's a good chance that he operates as the wide receiver 3 tonight. It could end up being Julio Jones, but he still does have that torn PCL in his knee. So I'm not expecting him to play, more than like 25 snaps in this game or over 50%. But that's just me. If you want to build that way where Julio Jones plays pretty well tonight, you can also build that too, because it's not going to be a super popular line overall. But once again, if you guys have any questions, I'll hang around for about a minute more, but definitely do appreciate everybody that tuned in, checked out the stream. Once again, if you want to check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Coach Craig Sports. If you're new to the new YouTube channel, make sure that you subscribe, make sure you turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of the videos or live streams going forward. But definitely appreciate everybody that did stop in tonight overall. If you guys have any other questions between now and the time of lock, also feel free to reach out to me on Twitter at Coach Craig Sport. It's up here on my screen as well. That's my Twitter handle. Feel free to follow me there. Feel free to ask me any DFS questions in general, because obviously I do NFL DFS, MLB DFS, and NBA DFS as well. So definitely be sure to check out the content. And then also over at WeBetATS.com, I put out my weekly cheat sheets for the NFL DFS for both DraftKings and FanDuel. They will be linked in my core pick video. So definitely be sure to check those out as well. Definitely appreciate all the support that everybody does give me on this channel, checking out the cheat sheets and everything else like that. I do truly appreciate it. But pretty much with that being said, that's all I have for tonight's stream. If you guys have any other questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. Reach out to me on Twitter. And I do appreciate each and every one of you with the support that you have given. Hopefully you guys do pretty well in general tonight for the NFL DFS, whether you're playing on DraftKings, FanDuel, any other site out there that you do play on as well. But definitely appreciate everybody that was here. And I do wish you guys a great rest of the night.